research question, my name is Anne Munn. How does integrating mental health professions in early childhood classrooms affect children's emotional and behavioral outcomes? The first article that I researched was Building Reflective Capacity and Improving Well-Being of Early Childhood Professionals through an Embedded Cross Model of an Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation. So this article was really talking about the study to improve early childhood professionals' well-being and that they are to build safe relationships with students. By doing so, this will help children be able to communicate effectively with their teachers and to practice emotional regulation. This answers my research question because it shows the benefits of having professionals, which are the educators, being educated in emotional regulation, because without that, they won't know how to deal with certain situations. My next article that I want to talk about is co-designing an infant early childhood mental health mobile app for early childhood education teachers. I thought this article was really interesting because this is a new app to help new ECE teachers that might not be aware of children's challenging behaviors. And this will allow teachers to be able to communicate more with the students and effectively in early childhood. I feel like this mobile app really helps my research question because the app will give ways to support educators for children's emotional well-being and behavioral outcomes because it will give them coping strategies, and maybe the teacher could type in like what they're dealing with the child. So I think this is really helpful and just shows that even if it's not a professional that the children are going to, at least the educator is getting some more knowledge about how to deal with those certain situations. My next article that I want to talk about is Supporting Multi-Sector Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Professional Development Evaluation of the Curriculum. So this is really talking about early intervention, early childhood special education, how important that is for social emotional development because those are those really critical years. They're trying to implement this new core curriculum that is meant to be helpful for professionals to practice and expand their knowledge and enhance their work. I really think this also supports my research question because, again, it's building on that support for professionals and how useful those skills are really in early childhood mental health, and how we will really see those outcomes even later in life, and the children will be able to carry that while they're learning their social and emotional development. And then in my in my fifth article, Longitudinal Impact of Child Adversity of Early Childhood Adolescent Mental Health During COVID-19 Pandemic and ABCD Study Court, does race or ethnicity moderate findings. So this was showing how COVID-19 had really affected children's mental health and how it had just was terrible for them. Studies have shown that mental health plummeted and got worse at times because they struggled through worry, stress, and anxiety. And then children really needed therapy, but there was none that could be given to them. I feel like this supports my research question because, again, it's showing how, if educators aren't in the classrooms, they're not able to support those students' needs. And this just shows how this went on for so long and how they weren't able to get the therapies that were needed. Neighborhoods and mental health in early childhood. What does the evidence tell us? This evidence tells us that explaining mental health affects early childhood when underlooked. The research showed benefits of children being closer to neighborhoods and parks, which was ultimately better for their mental health. Further research strives to have more opportunities and communities for children and their access to these parks and recreational centers. I feel like this also supports my research question because it shows more of a need for children to be out in those environments, because if they're not being given those in healthy environments to be in and exposure, then they won't be able to develop that emotional regulation and communicate well with others. And then my next article, Investing in Early Childhood Mental Health, Work Enforcement Development, Enhancing Professionals' Competency to Support Emotional Behavioral Regulation in Young Children. This is one of the most prevalent issues in early childhood, is young children not being able to regulate themselves. They started to bring in behavioral regulation specialists to create a program to help educators to be able to regulate children's behaviors and their emotions, because a lot of schools won't have enough funding to have enough behavioral regulation specialists. So they're trying to make a program where teachers could also try some of those coping strategies, and this will really help support children's behavioral and health. I think this also goes again to support my research question because it shows the importance of behavioral specialists in classrooms and how beneficial that can be for children's behaviors. My next article, The Family is the Patient, Promoting Early Childhood Mental Health Pediatric Care pediatric care, there's a large lack of mental health services in early childhood, and I think this was very prevalent in this new system because it shows that without that, you can't have healthy family environments, parent and emotional behavior. And then also more mental health services will be provided and improvements of children's and parents' mental health will follow. I think this also supports my research questions because if they're also supporting this in healthcare, it's a matter of time when it's implemented into schools as well. My next article that I want to talk about, it takes reflection at all different levels, not just people on the floor, a qualitative exploration of early childhood professionals. They were showing that trauma in early childhood is very significant and plays a critical role with these children. Educators aren't prepared for this, which leaves burnout and challenges. There needs to be more training to be informed with different approaches for educators to use. This supports my research question because it shows that educators do not need to be informed of challenges and do have coping strategies to deal with children's emotional regulation. This just shows that how important it is for educators to be informed of children's challenges, and that if they aren't, children will struggle. So it's important to see those steps and those early signs. My last research article that I want to talk about is opportunities for public policy to support infant and early childhood mental health, the role of psychologists. Early childhood and infants can be supported by different policies that allow for strengthened bonds between families and promote mental health wellness, social supports, and emotional development, educating public policy and advocating for children's mental health and well-being. This supports my research question because it shows the support of psychologists and how important it is for children's mental health, because without that, they won't be able to get the social and emotional development that they need and that communication as well. Then my key findings was that it's very prevalent that there is a lack of mental health resources in schools and even in healthcare, and that how that is a problem. There are people and policies that are trying to help and allocate more money for these professionals to be involved in early childhood classrooms for children's social and emotional well-being. More research and ways for children to build those healthy emotional regulation and coping skills. And these were my references. Thank you.